Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to another Thursday night version of the Sports Crib, home of the Sports Crib Network. The playoffs are here, and my hometown Padres surprised the Dodgers, even without the presence of the young man, Mr. Tatis. So we are looking forward here in San Diego to our playoff games and hopefully a victory. But let me see if I see Mr. Carroll is in the queue. So let's get right to the show. Mr. Carroll, how are we doing this evening?
I have had a very, very, very long day. But
Yeah,
here we are. A lot of stuff going on at work, and then as soon as I got done with that, I had to help my daughter with math homework until just a few minutes before the show. So nothing quite like trigonometry to get you ready for a show.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, I guess that goes right along with trigonometry. I remember those days. Jesus Christ.
Yes,
Wow.
exactly. I was called upon the Lord a few times myself during my daughter's math homework.
Uh, as I said, the playoffs have started, and Verlander got the Astros off to a great start with 11 Ks, and he beat the Yankees 4-2 in the opener. So who's going to win this series, Bill? The Sticks or the Stones?
That's a great question. Obviously, I mean, I'm a Yankee fan, but I'm also a person that's extremely realistic, as you know. I feel like the Yankees are not constructed well enough pitching wise to survive a team like the Houston Astros. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. I would love to see the Padres. You know, the Cinderella story. Keep running, keep going, and a Padres Astros series would be fascinating because it would be easy for me. I could easily pull for. I have many reasons to pull for the Padres at that point. First of all, you're in San Diego. Second of all, they're not the Astros.
Talking about the Padres, they beat back at the Dodgers
Yep,
to a lot of people's surprise.
yep.
And we did it without the young man Tatis, who has been
Junior, yes,
suspended.
Fernando Tatis
So
Jr. Yep.
yeah. Uh, I was thinking about this. You were talking about the Astros and the Padres, but the the Padres do actually. They also are a team with a bunch of great sticks, and they have a great young talent pool. Who do you think this series will go to? And do you
They,
think it'll go the distance?
they certainly can. They have one, obviously pricey free agent in Manny Machado, but a lot of that team is homegrown talent. With a certain splash of important free agents, obviously, but it's easy to root for a team that's built that way. I mean, they're not a low, payroll franchise, right? Like the Guardians, but they're not the Dodgers, right? They're not a team that's just everybody's making, 20 million or more. I mean, they're a relatively, I won't say mid market, but right. I mean, it's slightly above average what they're paying payroll wise, but it's nowhere close to a team like the Dodgers. So it's easy to root for because it's a cool story. And yes, that team is built to stay together. Like if they do the right things, they can make a nice multi-year run.
Most definitely, yeah. And like when they got Machado and before Tatis,
Yep.
the Tatis stuff, the Dodgers, I mean, excuse me, the Padres were considered, to be up and comers. I guess we're a little more than that now.
Yeah, they got
Uh,
there a little sooner.
a lot.
Yeah.
um, Bill, I don't know if you got a chance to watch it Sunday or not, but prime time was on prime time. 60 Minutes.
Yep. Yep.
What did you think about his interview?
I'll say this much: it was exactly what I expected. He's always been. I mean, this is not news. He's never been a guy who's been one to bite his tongue. I think that's known. that he says what's on his mind and has. I mean, I was introduced to the man, I guess, when he was 18 years of age, and already then he was clearly himself. You heard him say the things that he believed, the things that were on his mind, whatever he thought, whatever he was thinking. You add to that that all eyes, not all eyes, but a lot of eyes are on him and that program. Jackson State, of course, has a long and proud history. Robert Brazil, NFL Hall of Famer, Sweetness, NFL Hall of Famer, and Eddie, the younger brother, I think, is it the College Golf Hall of Fame, maybe? Was a terrific all-around athlete because he played football. I think Eddie actually lettered in almost every sport they had. I think Eddie Payton lettered in track, baseball, golf, football, not wrestling. I don't know if they had a wrestling club at the time. I know they don't. They don't now, but I think he lettered in maybe tennis as well. He lettered, I think, in 5 sports. Eddie Payton was one of the great all-around athletes in black sports history, and people don't talk about Eddie Payton nearly enough. But great program, great for a long time. But when you add to, or throw into, or add on to what they built in the past, and sort of people have forgotten about the fact that you now have an NFL Hall of Famer who is bringing in 4 and 5 star recruits, uh, and so many big programs are salivating over the idea of landing him. And I think at some point he does leave. The whole "you ain't slack" thing we talk about, but I think he hangs out for at least one more season. I think this is not his last year. I think he sticks around at least one more year. I think he wants to see his son become draft eligible at one spot, and that's part of it. And I think he feels like he wants to not make. I think he wants to be think that he wasn't just visiting. I think if he gets to 3 years, there'll be not really any hard feelings when he leaves. If he left there for 1 or 2 years, something about the three. Three is a magic number. If he gets to 3 seasons, you're like, okay, you earned the right to leave. It would sound funny when you say it, but I think that there won't be those sort of sidelong glances at that point if he signs with name whatever big program it is that throws a big pile of money his way after year 3 at Jacksonville. But yeah, he said things that were true. HBCUs are still largely treated as second-class citizens. If look at the state apportionment, if you just get super bored of what the state. So state colleges, if you look at what they get per capita, look at what predominantly white schools get per capita, right? So by per student, what allotment of funding they get. Now, you'll hear lots of things. Well, they do more research. They doing more research because they have more money. It's a chicken or the egg thing. If they would you get more research facilities at black schools. Howard has a pretty well known research facility, both in psychiatric studies and maybe also obstetrics and gynecology, I think. But outside of Hampton and Howard, there's very little clinical research done because they don't have the facilities. They don't have the facilities because they don't have the money. It's not like they have the money and they aren't spending it. So that's a whole other show. I guess this is not the education policy studies show, so I won't go too far down that path. But a lot of what he said was true, with a little bit of I'm Dion thrown in for later.
What did you think about the when the moderator asked him, what did you hope to accomplish? And he says, "Well, I'm here."
Right? And I think him being there is an accomplishment. If you're Jackson State, having a coach that everyone in college football talks about is an accomplishment. Coach Comedy is a really good coach, but you'd be hard pressed to find 1% of fairly knowledgeable college football fans who could tell you when Coach Comedies was there who's the coach at Jackson State. Even knowledgeable college football fans who weren't black would struggle to get out his name. Every, even casual college football fan knows who Deion Sanders is. So So that is an accomplishment. Having that nationally known name, that 60 minute. I mean, in a way, the fact that 60 Minutes is talking to Deion Sanders answers the question by itself. The answer is being the fact that you're asking me this shit on 60 Minutes answers the question. Did you interview any other Jackson State coaches ever on 60 Minutes? I think the answer is no. 60 Minutes has been around since what, 1972, James?
at least.
Yeah, I mean, that I know of. Maybe before that, but not. I mean, sometimes it's the very early 70s. I think they might have had Eddie Robinson. I think they had Eddie Robinson.
Yeah, I can remember. I do think I remember an Eddie Robinson.
I'm pretty sure they had Eddie Robinson. So that brings the number of black college coaches to two. The greatest black college coach of all time, and Dion. There's the list that they've had on 60 Minutes. So the fact that they've had Dion in his second year of coaching answers all the questions. Right? That is the answer to the question. I'm being interviewed on 60 Minutes. Next question. I mean,
Pres-
that is the answer. The fact that you're talking to me on 60 Minutes about what I'm doing at Jackson State is the answer to what I'm doing at Jackson State.
yeah, I thought it was a very good answer, and like you said, it was stating the obvious. Um, Bill, clearly, Coach Saban didn't listen to you last week.
No,
Uh,
he did not.
when you were
Call me.
talking,
I will help you. Well, they struggle with a certain kind of quarterback, and you can look at the history of the program. Look at what Deshaun Watson did to them. Look at what Jonathan Paul Manziel did to them. They clearly struggle with a quarterback who can extend plays, has a strong enough arm, and sees the field very well. And this is not a vintage. I mean, stop me, you've heard this before, but this is not a vintage Alabama defense. They have one truly transcendent talent in Will Anderson, and the rest of them are very good players, but none of them are special in that sense.
yeah, it is. If anything, like you said, this year is the year for that defense that's going to take a back seat. Usually,
Yep,
we
he's
talk to
going to
them.
win with offense. I'm sure he hates it, but he's going to have to. He would obviously prefer to win most of his games like 17-14, but this is not the year for that.
Clearly, it is not the year for
It is
that.
not.
Yeah.
It is not. This is not that year.
Yeah. Uh, Bill, another young man died this week. Another young 19-year-old man. Young man passed away. And I've kind of asked this question before. Uh, what do you think? With all of the modern day technology as far as medicine and and whatnot, why do you think we're still seeing young men that are still succumbing to the this sport? Once again, I I don't want to say it was because of the roughness of the sport or because of how much of the way it was played, but it seemed that I don't know. Should I say that young men were in better shape, or should I
Well,
say?
I mean,
Should,
here's my question because I
Go
don't
ahead.
know enough about his health. Do you know if he had any sort of underlying conditions or?
Well, that none of that has come out. The only thing that they just said was that the young man passed away, and he was 19 years old. And I mean, there wasn't a specific reason given as
So
of
we
yet.
don't know if he might have had something in the system. We don't. So that, yeah. So this is it's too early to really give an opinion because we don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that it comes out that the young man, wasn't taking any, type of performance enhancing drugs or anything like that.
Or
But
any other kind of drugs. I mean, some of
yeah,
these young men are young. Do what other young men do. They don't. It's not all performance enhancement. I mean, these are college students. Some of them are taking other stuff.
yeah. I mean, there are, other things available to students these days. But overall, do you think that uh, the way the college programs are run now, do you think that the athletes are in less physical conditioning, physical condition, excuse me, uh, and that possibly this is what leads to a lot of these unforeseen uh, s- accidents, incidents
Uh,
that are happening.
well, I'm going to say no. When people die from football-related activities, it's generally not something that physical conditions. I mean, there's some exceptions, but generally it's not because of physical conditions or lack thereof. Generally, these are either trauma injuries, right? Rare, but that's a fair. When someone dies, uh, injury to the brainstem or spine, right? Physical condition can't do anything about that. Occasionally, it's a cardiac situation, and for some reason they didn't pick something up, like maybe tachycardia. I mean, there's things that, but those are usually congenital conditions. Usually, those are things you were born with, and they just didn't pick it up during the physical. Now they should have if you did a good stress test, but those are things that you can't condition your way out of having a heart tachycardia, whatever it is. Um, some of these guys end up having a sickle cell trait, right? And for some reason, it wasn't picked up. And so, if that's the case, once again, it should have been picked up on a physical, but somehow it slipped through. So that's not something that being in. You can't get. There's no amount of working out that's going to get rid of the fact you have a sickle cell trait. If you have sickle cell, when a guy dies during conditioning, which does haven't happened in a few years, but it has happened before, that is more a function of them not conditioning you correctly, right? It's not ramping up, in the correct fashion. You can say that, like Corey Springer was huge. He was 364 pounds. So for very large players, if it's a conditioning based thing, are certainly more at risk. And there are more bigger players than there used to be. But the actual fat percentage, even of the very large players, is actually lower than it's ever been before because of the advances in sports nutrition and things like that. So where once a guy, looked like Floyd, pork chop Womack, even very large offensive linemen usually do not look like him, right? They usually are not, 44% body fat, that kind of thing. A lot of guys who were, I mean, look at Jordan Davis, right? I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 360 something pounds, but less than 17% body fat. That never would have happened in the old days.
Yeah, yeah, but uh, but it seems to me like uh, in back in the day, things were more. I mean, you had more players that were susceptible to heat exhaustion and types of things like that. Uh, I'm just, like I said, and we've also raised the question in professional sports about the lack of preseason games and warming up and whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well,
But
here's to me the biggest difference is that because of how severe things were, the guys that we're talking about that would have maybe eventually gotten into danger because of heat stroke, whatever, would just quit, right? They would run. We all know the story of that one day of high school that Charles Barkley was on the football team. Literally one day, right? I mean, he said it was the worst day of his life. He said, "I haven't had many bad days in my life, but the one day I tried to play football was one of them." Uh, they used to try to make you quit in the old days, and that's not quite what the intention is anymore. Guys rarely run practice in such a way they're trying to get guys to quit anymore. I'm not saying it never happens. I'm saying it is less likely to happen nowadays. They're more conditioning is more about actually conditioning you, not about seeing if I can make you quit. So that I think is a big difference. That there's actual sports science people, right? And that was something that changed in the last few years. Every single program that's a big time program Ask who the second or third highest paid coach is. You'll be surprised to hear it. Very often, not an offensive coordinator, not a defensive coordinator, right? Strength and conditioning. Saban said the most indispensable coach in his program, not named Nick Saban, is his strength and conditioning coach. Your strength and conditioning coach works with all of the other players, first of all, right? Place kickers, wide receivers, defensive ends, defensive tackles, offensive guards, centers, safeties, corners, running backs. Everybody works with the strength and conditioning coach. And that's other than the head coach, that's the only other coach that can say he worked with every coach on the team is strength and conditioning. And so conditioning now is about condition. It's about building your strength, your flexibility, your explosiveness. It's not about toughening you up. That's the difference. That's what's changed in the last 30, 40 years is that conditioning is for condition, not for weeding out the weak or whatever.
Separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, that's the difference.
uh, uh, Bill, the CFP expansion team has still not finished their work. They still haven't come up with a viable plan or number of guys, I mean teams, to participate. They're still working toward 12 in 2024. Do you think that we will have a 12 team playoff in 2024 or not?
I think they'll expand. I don't know if they'll make it all the way to 12. I mean, eventually I think they will. I think they may end up sort of at a halfway point around 8 and then work their way up to 12 further. That's just my, I mean, I don't have inside information. That's just me. That's just speculation.
Uh, so you think it'll go to 8 and then to 12 instead of straight to 12?
I think that's what will end up happening. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Texas and Oklahoma State. Who you got?
I have Oklahoma State, so that's going to be a good game. They obviously were in what I would call one of the games of the. In fact, there was about 3 games this past Saturday that were in tight contention for the game of the year, and that was one of them. It was maddening and great trying to watch that game, trying to watch Alabama, Tennessee, trying to watch USC and Utah. It was a crazy. I loved it though. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy Saturday. But Oklahoma State just I think has a little too much for Texas to keep down. I mean, I think they're going to score a gazillion points in Texas, and I think Texas can score, but I don't think they can score with Oklahoma State.
Hmm, okay. Couple other good games, undefeated games, Syracuse and Clemson.
That's going to be a really good game. I think people are underestimating Syracuse. However, I think Syracuse hangs around. I think Syracuse gets some big plays. Mark my words. They're going to sputter. They're going to have a lot of three and outs, but then they're going to have some like two and score, right? This is a name you may not know. He's a former Mississippi State quarterback. They tried to move him to wide receiver. He transfers to Syracuse. His name's Garrett Schrader. Garrett Schrader may be the fastest white quarterback in America. No, he's not. That's John Reese Plumlee. Scratch that. He may be the second fastest white quarterback in America. But Garrett Schrader is a he's I think guys just look at him and don't think he can run, and he consistently runs away from guys. He is fast. He's going to tear off some runs, and I think Sean Tucker is one of the best running backs in America. I think he's going to tear off some runs, and we'll get like one. Remember Rondé Gadsden?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, his son is the best receiver at Syracuse, Rondé Gadsden Jr., which makes you feel super old. So I think Aronte Gadsden Jr. is going to get a big play as well. So I think 2 or 3 big plays. So they might get 3 scores all on big plays, maybe a field goal through some other means. But I think just along the lines, there's too much of an advantage, especially the defense. There's too much of an advantage for Clemson. They survive, but it'll be closer than people think.
UCLA and Oregon.
Ooh, ooh, I like that game a lot. I'm going to go UCLA. I'm almost at a coming out party, but it's not really a coming out party. Dorian Thompson Robinson's already out, but he's going to remind people who maybe are not put him high enough in their quarterback rankings. I think Dorian Thompson Robinson has a great, not a good, a great game, and leads them to a late come from behind victory.
Um, does Alabama recover this week?
Yes, or else people will be flayed alive. I mean,
It is.
uh, the there aren't too many people who run really, really, really rough practices left, but one of those men who's left who still runs very physical practices is Nick Saban. Unless you would like practices to be an absolute bloodletting, you better not lose two games in a row.
Let's see. Who else? Oh, TCU and Kansas State.
That'll be a fun game because TCU is his styles mixed fight. It has one of the most explosive offenses I've seen. Max Duggan, first of all, Max Duggan is so much better than people think. He is a really good quarterback. He's mobile, he has a strong arm, he's accurate. My my favorite wide receiver in all of college football this year is Quentin Johnston. Write that name down and remember it. Quentin Johnston is a skinnier Mike Davis. Not Mike Davis, Mike Evans. He is like Mike Evans before Mike Evans got into the weight program. He could put on about another 8 to 12 pounds, but my gosh, he runs good routes. He's got long arms, big hands, and he can run. He is trouble. And I don't think they have really any answer for him. I think he gets probably another 2 or 3 touchdown games. And yeah, give me TCU.
Um, we talked about the Tennessee Alabama game, and we know who won the game. But which quarterback do you think had the best performance?
The one that the more efficient performance is Allen. That's his actual first name, Hendon Hooker. His father, Alan Hooker, Senior, or actually they don't have the same middle name. He puts Allen Hooker. Was a terrific quarterback at NCAA back in the day. I scouted once again another father son scouting mission for me, but I scouted both of them. He had the more efficient day, and even in defeat, Bryce Young was spectacularly good. I mean, that kid. But the more efficient day went to Hooker. The more spectacular day to me went to Bryce Young.
Uh, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, Bryce Young was dealing with a lot of harassment. They didn't sack him a huge number of times. They sacked him a few times, but they were around him constantly. He's a smaller quarterback. I don't think that's telling anybody things they don't already know. We'll see. He's listed at 6 feet tall. I will be pleasantly shocked if he's 6 feet tall. He's probably in the low to mid 180s. If he can get to even 192, I think that would help him. But he's a smaller, slender quarterback. People sometimes mention guys like Russell Wilson. Russell was 203 in college. To put it in perspective, that's what Emmett Smith weighed in college. Now he's a little taller than it, but not that much taller. A guy like Russell always has been very thick. Look at the lower body. That's not Bryce. Bryce is built like a point guard. He's built like Nate Tiny Archibald. Literally, he's built like Nate Tiny Archibald. So he got knocked around a little bit, even when it wasn't an actual sack. They got hands on him a little bit. He got moved around, knocked around. It's clear to me that, like I said, he played a beautiful game. He played a great game, and there's, there's a lot to like about him. And those people who worry about his size, I understand it because he's not for everyone, right? I mean, you have to know what you're getting, but he's quick. He's incredibly accurate. He sees ahead of his throws. He anticipates so well for a guy who's so young. I mean, I really am a big fan of his. And it'll just come down to how nervous some people are about his size. But he's a tremendous prospect. Hip Hooker, of course, is almost 6'3", and actually, I guess he's shade over 6'3". He's 218 pounds. He looks more like what a lot of teams like in an NFL quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when draft time rolls around for those guys. But I'm a big fan of both of them.
Um, what's your scouting report on Uh, Tyler Harrell.
You said Tyler Harrow, the basketball player?
Tyler Harold, the
Oh,
wide
whoa.
receiver for Alabama.
Let me see. I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same player. Is that his name? Hold on. Not that I'm doubting you. I just want to make sure that's. Oh, Harrell? No, that kid's at. No, he's at Louisville. Hold on. Oh, he is. He transferred. No, he isn't. Okay. Yeah, we're talking about this. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I started watching him when he was at Louisville, and he transferred. Now he's hurt, obviously, but he has talent, right? He has ability. He hasn't been able to play this season due to injury, but he was. I liked him a lot when I saw him at Louisville. I guess he's supposed to return before the season's out.
According to Nick Saban, he's supposed to start within the next couple of weeks, if possible. It says
Okay, good,
Alabama
good,
may
good.
unveil
So,
a
I
new
haven't seen
weapon
him
this week.
obviously.
Actually they're expecting him this weekend against Mississippi State.
Yeah, I haven't seen him play for Alabama yet, but I like what I saw when he was with Malik Cunningham at Louisville. He can catch the ball outside the frame of his body. He's pretty good after the catch. He's not an elite route runner by any stretch of the imagination. Like that's clearly a place of growth for him. Uh, he needs to be more deceptive. I think some people don't realize, and some do, but if you ever played receiver or if you played defensive back, you know that one of the things that can make a receiver great isn't size or speed; it's the fact that you don't know what they're doing, right? Um, those some guys who as good as strong as they are, as fast as whatever, they tip their pitches, right? It's like knowing a slider's coming. Even if it's a great slider, if you know it's coming, it makes it easier to hit. Some receivers, no matter how talented they are physically, they give you a pretty good idea of what's coming, right? They look a certain way, they put more weight on the outside versus the inside part of their foot. There's certain things they do that give away what's likely to happen. So and that's the thing that I think Tyler Harrell needs to work on. I think if he can be more deceptive, he could, become a really good piece of that receiving puzzle there. I don't think he'll be the guy, but I think he'd be maybe the two or three there.
Speaking of the transfer portal, what did you think about Josh Braun's decision to transfer? I don't think a lot of people saw that coming.
No, I don't think a lot of people saw that coming either. I'm in general a fan of it, as I said before, because it gives players an opportunity to find their best opportunity. Right? It gives them a chance to say, where do I fit? It gives them a chance to test the market, if you're going to put it that way. And so much of America is about that. It's funny, a lot of the same people that I hear touting the free market, and talking about how important it is to have, all this competition, how much they love, the opportunity to compete, how much they love the fact that, our system, our nation is built around competition and taking advantage of things, the free enterprise system, still managed to not like the transfer portal. Like that's funny. You love all this free enterprise and everything else. I think it's great in general. Now, just because you want to go someplace doesn't mean it's a place for you to go. So, that would be the second part of the equation is there a dance partner? Now, there probably will be. There usually is somebody, but some of these guys never find a home, right? Some of these guys end up going down to a junior college or going down to a lower level of school because there isn't a home for them at a big school.
Do you think Notre Dame will end up with a transfer, someone from the transfer portal at QB?
Well, I mean, eventually, probably. Now, I don't know if that person will win the job, but Notre Dame has struggled with the quarterback position. Well, I mean, Ian Book wasn't that long ago, I guess, but uh, the last time they had someone that they knew was the guy and was the guy for year after year after year was Ian Book, right? I think he had 40 starts or something, or 30 something starts in his time at Notre Dame. Unquestionably the guy, definitely. They have not had someone who was unquestionably the guy since then. They've had, yeah, I mean, Jack Cohen was, he kept the seat warm. They've had some other guys, Drew Pine, and they've had a few different guys, but none of those guys were clearly the guy. And that's the challenge. Can they find a guy who's clearly the guy? And yeah,
You,
guys love going to Notre Dame. It doesn't always work out, but yeah, they'll get somebody else.
um, let's see. I was thinking about someone else here. Oh, when we were talking about uh, the Pac-12, uh, what did you take away from the Utah game this week? A lot of us picked Utah to win that game, and they did.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean that was that. They were 3.5 point favorites. So actually, if you go by that, USC won, but because Utah didn't cover. But what was clear to me is we talk about struggling against mobile quarterbacks. USC is one of those schools that struggles against mobile quarterbacks. I was pleasantly surprised with how they handled Michael Penix from Washington. Not that he didn't put up big numbers, he did, but they managed to keep him from killing him. They were not able to do so with Cam Rising. They still need to do something about their defense. This is a team that does not have a great defense. And of course, great defense, we were talking about nowadays, is not an easy thing to find, admittedly. But I have my concerns. That's what I'm saying. I think that they will beat a lot of the teams they have just on pure talent. But when they do have to get stops in key situations, I don't know if they really get them against really good teams. USC could. I mean, my prediction was 9-3 or 10-2 before the season. I'm sticking to it. 9-3 or 10-2. I think that's where they are.
okay. Uh, let's run a little NFL by you here. Uh, by the way, Bill, did you get your booster shot yet?
What'd you say?
Did you get your booster shot yet?
Oh, not the most recent version of it. I guess I can go to my Walmart and do it now.
Yeah, the reason why I asked, I just went to the VA hospital, and I know they are out here. They are. It's
Yeah, I can do it
available.
here too as well. Out at
Yeah.
beautiful Hines, Illinois, which is the Hines. What's his name? What's his Brown? Something. What's the first name of that? Something Brown. He'll come back to me. Hospital. But yes, I will. I will definitely be getting that taken care of.
Huh, huh. Let's talk a little NFL. Yeah, I got mine yesterday. Still feel a little queasy, but not bad. Not bad. Um, so Jim Irsay on Daniel Snyder. He says, "I believe there is merit for removing him as an owner." Is this the death knell for Snyder finally, Bill?
It is not. I mean, I'd love to work. That'd be great, but it is not. It will take a lot more than that. So did not disappear. Did you read the Seth Wickersham story?
No.
Okay, so there's a lot in there, and I guess we don't have you
Oh,
define it.
wait. I think that's the story about whether or not Daniel Snyder has some dirt on on the commissioner
That's
and
the
some of
Sam
it.
Wickersham.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Seth
All right. All
Wickersham story on
right. Okay.
ESPN.com.
Yeah. Yes, I did read that.
So you know what I'm talking about. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. But what's happening is whatever support he had amongst other his fellow owners has eroded significantly. It's the term I would use. Significant erosion.
Okay. So, are you expecting years? A couple more years,
It will be
or
years
do you think that this is
plural.
something
Yeah,
that's
it will
going to
be
get done?
multiple years. And because of who Snyder is, it'll have to be a situation where he can still claim victory. He is not going to take the L in this. It'll have to be a situation where he can proclaim victory. Either by making, a record profit, the biggest sale of a sports franchise in history, which it could well be. So if he ends up selling it for close to $1 billion, right, which is not beyond the realm of possibility, he could get close to $1 billion, despite the fact that he's done a lot to damage the brand himself. Um, he has not been a great owner. I don't think anybody would dispute that. He is not a particularly good person. There's a lot. of things that could be said about him, and many of them are negative. Uh, he is not an owner that is. He's not one of the people that people. When you talk to people who've worked with him, they don't tend to have good things to say about the experience. He has squeezed a lot of pennies until they screamed for mercy. There has been literal sewage that is dripped on patrons. I'm not joking. Look it up at the stadium. Um, Someone said that's a great metaphor for what it's like to root for a franchise that's owned by Dan Snyder. Um, he's not the worst owner in sports, but he is in the bottom five.
Bottom five, top five. What is it?
Yeah, he's in there. He's in there.
Yeah. Um, there was another blowout at the owners' meeting, seemingly between Mr. Kraft and Jerry Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems that Jerry Jones was the only dissenting vote as far as a new contract for Mr. Goodell. Do you
Yeah.
see this as an ongoing problem between Jerry and Mr. Kraft?
I would like to be able to say yes because you love drama, but I think it's kind of a tempest in a teapot. I think Jerry Jones. Now, stop me if you heard this before. I think Jerry Jones likes attention,
You think?
and and so I'm not surprised at all to hear when everyone else is doing one thing and Jerry Jones is doing the other. I mean, we've done this list before. How many owners have a weekly radio show? How many owners do a post-game press conference after every game? Um, how many owners uh, are intricately involved, directly involved with player personnel decisions, with the hiring and firing of football staff, with, I mean, just things that you would think a billionaire would not want to be involved in. He's involved in just all kinds of crazy stuff. So he's not like the other guys, James. I mean, he's just not. He's a different everything. He's a different everything. He's not like the others. He doesn't want to be like the others. This is his favorite thing to do. He loves being in the spotlight. He loves meddling with the football team. He loves not taking advice. He loves he loves drama. He loves being talked about. All publicity is good publicity. Jerry Jones is just a different cat, man. There's no other owner anywhere like him. I mean, Dan Snyder's a mess, but he's not the same. He's not a fun mess. He's just an awful mess. Jerry Jones is kind of a fun mess. Jerry Jones is having a good time. And is he sometimes, doing a little too much football stuff for an octogenarian billionaire? Yes. Yes, he is a little too involved in some things that should be probably left to guys who, one, that's all they do is football, and two, are not 80.
No. Yeah. Uh, it should be interesting to see how it plays out. Two men, big personalities. Robert Kraft a little more subtle, but Jerry Jones. I mean, hey, we've all we've known who Jerry is for years. So no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah.
I'm sure they've had lots of little disagreements in the past, but this is, I don't think it's anything serious.
Tyler Henneke says that he's a different quarterback, but does he give the Commanders a better chance of winning?
Yes and no. So, as you know, I've been on Taylor Heineke since he was probably 19 years of age. He holds all the passing records, at least so far, at Old Dominion University. He is a kid from, is it Cobb County? He set all the records in whatever county in Georgia where he was. Went wildly under recruited, had very few offers. I think maybe Valdosta State, either Georgia State or Georgia Southern, and then ODU were his three best offers. And he, I think, wisely chose ODU because at ODU got to throw to some pretty decent receivers. A couple of them are kind of still hanging around the NFL, including Pascal and what's the other kid's name? What was the other kid's name? But he had a couple of decent receivers there, and they set a bunch of Sun Belt, shout out to the Sun Belt Conference, bunch of Sun Belt Conference records, and finds his way as an undrafted free agent to Washington through a combination of guys ahead of him not playing as well as expected and injury. He ends up starting a decent number of games in his career, famously in that was it a I can't remember it was a Sunday night game where he ends up being the last man standing when they played Tampa Tom. But uh, but yes, he's got a nice little career. Uh, for someone that everyone thought was maybe a camp arm, and even the most enthusiastic person said was probably a career backup, and he might still not be a career backup. He's got some juice to him. I said that I thought he had a chance to have. It's funny he's on the screen now, but I thought he had a chance to have sort of a similar career to a guy like Nick, you know, Fitzmagic, right? To Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he has a chance of a similar kind of career to a guy like Fitzpatrick. He has just enough that in the right situation, he ended up being a starter for a year or two. But he's the kind of guy who could always be trying to replace. He actually runs a lot also of the one that the Minneapolis Miracle, Colt Brennan, not Brennan. I mean Keenum, Case Keenum. Sorry. Shout out to the late Colt Brennan. A lot of Case Keenum. He has a lot of Case Keenum in him too. He's kind of, a lot like that, like a smaller guy, but not afraid to go deep. Pretty fearless. In fact, not always a good thing, but yeah, he plays free. He doesn't get scared after he throws an interception. He plays like I said, a little loose, a little wild, and he's a better player than some people realize. But he's not super talented, so people are always looking to replace him. But yeah, I like the kid.
Uh, Zappy Jones, do you think that the Pats have a quarterback controversy?
No, we've seen this movie before. There was, believe it or not, there was a time we were asking if they had a quarterback controversy. You know, back when Garoppolo looked good. I mean, they do this. They do a good job of developing backup quarterbacks, whether it be Garoppolo or Brissett or Matt Castle. That sucks some other franchise right into making the move, and they move the pick or move the player and get back picks, right? So they're going to try to convince some team. They're showcasing, convince some team that yeah, you should definitely bring this kid in, and we'll you know what because you're my friend, I'll just take a fourth for him. Well, a conditional, say a fifth that turns to a fourth if the kid plays a certain number of games the year after that. How about that? Worst case scenario, you're out two fourths. Bingo, bango, bungo, they do the deal, right? So Michael McCorkle Jones is going to be the man there. That's the guy that they're building their offense around. That's the guy that they're committed to. They're thrilled that Bailey Zappi is starting to make a name for himself, and they can't wait to trade him.
Okay, I see. Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. Do you think they'll both be in a Giants uniform in 2023? Neither of them, or just one of them? And if one, which one?
Wait, Daniel Jones or Matt Barkley?
Saquon Barkley.
Oh, Saquon Barkley. Okay, making sure. I think they hold on to both of them. I mean, Daniel Jones without Saquon Barkley is not the quarterback that you want. But with the quarterback that he is, when he had, you know what Ryan Tannehill looked like in games where there when Henry wasn't out there.
Yeah.
The Henryless Tannehill. That's what they're going to get. They're going to get a Henryless Tannehill if he doesn't have Saquon Barkley. But you give him Saquon Barkley, and you've got Tannehill with Henry, and that's not bad. They want him with. They're going to try to make sure they have both.
um, Brady chews out his offensive line, but still accepts responsibility for his own actions, saying that he hasn't been playing that good either. Do you think this is what makes TB12 a good leader? Jason Kelsey said, he don't know if he could take that kind of criticism for Tom, but when your quarterback has multiple Super Bowl rings, and he's also a perfectionist. I mean, what do you think about this? Do you think that these are the things that make Tom a good leader? The fact that he can also accept the responsibility for when he plays bad.
Okay, so this is another non-story story, but okay. So, I mean, he's been yelling at what do you call it? Screaming at offensive linemen since he was in his mid twenties. Once he became fairly, once he was established as the guy, right? So he got a couple Super Bowls in, he was ready to start screaming at guys. That's not really new. And yes, he's thrown some dudes under the bus in his career. And then he says, I take full responsibility, blah blah blah, whatever. Um, I mean, that's what he said. He's done this before. We've seen this movie before, James. Um, he's once again a congenitally competitive human being, right? It is a bit of a sickness. He's a competaholic. It's why he's still playing when he should be home. We talk about this in his beautiful house with his beautiful wife and his beautiful children. But he tried that for about 40 days. He said, "Oh, this sucks." So he's he's who we think he is, man. He's a super highly competitive kind of a jerk who, I mean, he wants to win at everything all the time. He doesn't really care about your feelings. I mean, that's not really news. He comes off of, I mean, he's from the Patriots. I mean, that is a program that was built on accountability. And sometimes that accountability means getting screamed at, right? I mean, where do you think he learned this? I mean, he might have been doing it even before that, but boy, he spent some time playing for Bill Belichick. Here was some people get some of the, I mean, because Belichick was screaming at everybody. Right? That was the thing about Belichick. Some teams, Jimmy Johnson used to say, oh, no, I don't treat every player the same. I treat every player differently because, if you're a great player, I'm going to treat you very much differently from if you're a marginal player. The Belichick would set the example by going off on his best players, to let everybody know that anyone can get some of this. And Brady comes from that, right? He comes from that who cares about your feelings place. So I'm not surprised at all by anything he says to anybody.
Bill, who's the best team in the NFC West?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'll be honest with you. I really thought for a long time that it would probably be the 49ers, but I'm wavering on that. Uh, that is, I thought about this a lot, and every time I answered with one team, I would later change my mind. uh, they are really kind of a, bunch. So I'm going to go to the things that I look for when I look at teams. So right now, the team that 49ers are 2-0 at home, but 1-3 on the road. Right? The Rams are 2-2, and they're all the tough teams. Everybody but the Cardinals are 3-3. Um, so, so there's not a lot of differentiation except when you look at things like home and away. 1-1 for the Rams, 2-2 at home, 2-1 for Seattle, and 1-2 on the road. I'm going to say this though. The one with the lowest points allowed is still the 49ers by far with 89 points allowed. Their offense is not super dynamic, but when you only allow 89 points through 6 games, That gives you a chance to win against pretty much anybody. Now, obviously, they're coming off a loss, and they didn't look great. I watched. They didn't look great in that loss, but just the fact that, I mean, to put it by comparison, the Seahawks have allowed 163 points in the same number of games. They've allowed 163 points. That's 74 more points in 3 games. That's an eye opener. 74 more points in 3 games. So I can't say the Seahawks because their defense is Swiss cheese. Um, in fact, the only team that isn't upside down when it comes to points scored versus points allowed is the 49ers. So I'm going to have to sort of stick with them, but it didn't look great. But they've scored 122 points and allowed 89. Everyone else has allowed more than they scored.
So you going with the 49ers?
I don't feel great about it, but yeah, I mean, you could, you could literally cover all those teams with a nickel in terms of the difference between them.
Okay. All right. Um, Sauce Owens clowns the Cheeseheads after the Jets beat the
Sauce,
relaxed
Sauce
Packers.
Gardner,
Excuse me.
you know about Sauce Gardner?
I just said Sauce.
Oh, you just said Sauce. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Sauce.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you find more disrespectful? Sauce's cheesehead antics or Aaron Rodgers post game remarks?
um, well, I'll put it this way: one of those people is old enough to be the father to the other. So I'm going to go with the guy who's old enough to be the other guy's father, literally old enough to be the other guy's father. So I mean, when you're talking about a guy who's 21, 22 years old, throwing on a cheesehead, I mean, I've seen worse, right? I mean, not the
Hey,
worst thing I've
T.O.
seen.
ran out. Was it T.O. that ran out on the star?
T.O. ran on the star. Um, we had the fake mooning with Randy Moss, Joe Horn, and I think maybe also T.O. whipped out a cell phone. Um, the Sharpie game. T.O. had a few of these. T.O. shows up on a couple of these lists. But yeah, I mean, the cheesehead thing to me was sort of cute. It didn't bother me that
And Aaron's remarks.
much. I mean, I've defended Aaron Charles Rodgers a fair number of times, but I'm not going to defend the indefensible. I mean, now some of what he said is true. That kid, Royce Freeman, have you watched the all 22 of that game? If you pull it up on Game Pass and watch the all 22, film study day was not a good day to be Royce Freeman, James. I am sure he heard his name called a lot. He got beaten right off the snap. He got beaten by push pulls. He got beaten by bull rush. He got beat by up and under. He got beat by swim moves. He got beat by spins. Every move you get beaten by, that kid got beaten by. It was like a teaching tape on how to get beat. So Royce Newman may well become a really good offensive lineman, but it wasn't that day. So they're going to have to figure something out. People talk about their wide receivers. Their wide receivers, they'll be okay. If they don't figure out their offensive line, it won't matter who's playing wide receiver.
You know, Bill, I brought this up one other time. Hold on one second here. Yeah, yeah.
So you're wondering to yourself, why am I so down on Royce? Royce Newman, for those that scouted him while he was coming out of college, was a highly touted player coming into school, and certainly was a guy that certain people had great expectations for. Some people thought he had an opportunity to maybe play even um, Nashville, Illinois, right? Downstate Illinois kid. Went to Nashville Junior High School, then to Mississippi. He's a guy that has been tried at a couple of different positions, or could be tried at a couple of different positions, but I think
Okay.
he lacks both foot quickness and lower body power. And while that's not always a death knell to your career as a receiver, receiver, sorry, as a offensive lineman, it sure doesn't help. So one of the things that I think I'll focus on, and like I said, the whole line didn't have a great game against the Jets, but Newman, he got benched. He's gotten benched at times. He didn't take that second year jump that a lot of people were expecting. He did start 16. He started all 16 games last year. No, wait, 16 out of 17 games. Sorry, keep forgetting 17 games. And he struggled against even pretty good, low on great offensive linemen. He allowed a sack and 5 pressures. And the main thing that you notice is it's not even all just physical. He's had some mental breakdowns, right? There's been times when he's seemingly not gotten the call or is looking the wrong way or moving the wrong way at the snap. Um, there have been times when he just whiffed, I guess the term, just flat out whiffed. There's a play where they're down blocking and he, for whatever reason, goes in the opposite direction as everyone else on the line. So either he's right and everyone else is wrong, or he's wrong and everybody else is right. And while it's not impossible that he's in the right and everybody else is wrong, I'm going to put my money on him being wrong and everyone else being right. And that wasn't the only time. There was, Elton Jesus trying to pick up a corner cat blitz in that situation. So that means that Newman has to end up reaching to the defensive end. And it's a tough block to execute. It really is. But he seemed not to even know that was his responsibility. And so, it's an Olay play, right? Another time that sort of stuck out to me, since he doesn't have great length, he doesn't have strong hands, doesn't have a great lower body in terms of just pop and power. Um, there's another time when he gets literally pushed all the way back into the quarterback, like almost ends up sitting on his quarterback. So the lack of ability to anchor, that's not great. So not super athletic, doesn't anchor well, and he makes mental mistakes. I don't know how you feel about that, Jay, but it's not what I'm looking for in an offensive
Yeah. I asked you one other time um, when we were talking about the Jets, uh, and I asked you why so many of the Jets had been picked up on waivers. I think we talked about 7 Jets players being picked up on waivers.
line. Yep.
Uh, are the Jets just a couple players behind, a couple years behind? What's your assessment of
I
the
mean,
Jets and the
well,
talent they seem to have assembled?
well, they're 4-2. So now, obviously, it could all fall apart, but they're 4-2. They've won twice as many games as lost. So I mean, they could make a run for a uh, wild card spot this year, Dan. And I'll give you 2 words: Joe Douglas. When they brought in Joe Douglas, their talent evaluation and acquisition improved dramatically. They went from being a team that where other people sort of looked at their talent and thought, to a team where people somewhat covet the talent that they've managed to amass. And you give Joe Douglas a couple more drafts, you could be looking at a Super Bowl contender if, and this is obviously a big if, but if indeed they did hit on Zach Wilson, if he is the guy, if he turns into a top 8 to 10 quarterback, right? If he becomes a guy who's in that top 8 to 10, and that defense is kept mostly together, that is a tough team. That's a tough out. That's a team that could be good and good for a long time.
Okay. Let's get to our predictions for this week. And unfortunately, Mr. Scott isn't here today, so I can't do any jabs about analytics or any of that. But that's all right. So let's start out here. Who's the first game? Uh, the Saints plus 1.5 against the Cardinals.
I'm going to say the Cardinals cover that 1.5. Uh, I mean, obviously things could change, but the Cardinals just seem to have more total talent across the board right now.
But are they playing up to that talent, Bill?
I mean, they're 2-4 and about to be 3-4. So I guess the short answer is no.
Okay. The Falcons plus 5.5 at the Bungles.
Ooh, ooh. Well, I think that the Falcons do not win that game, but I also think that they lose it by about 4. So that's not a cover. I'm going to take, yeah, 5.5. You said right, 5 and a hook.
Five and the hook.
Yeah, give me the Falcons.
Okay. The Lions and 7.5 against the Cowboys.
Ooh. I mean, that defense is going to cause some turnovers. Well, and they're going to, and of course, the Cowboys themselves will score some points. But okay, I'm nervous about it. I'm shaky on it, but I think they
Dak's
might be.
first game back.
Yeah, I know. I'm shaky on this one. I'm gonna. I think that it's close the whole way until like a desperation, trying to come back, from 4 or whatever, and someone throws a desperation tip pass interception, and it leads to like a pick six to Javon Diggs probably. So I think they then win by 11. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys, but I don't like it.
Now, we've all talked about Zeke and we've talked about Tony and, how Tony will eventually supplant uh, uh, Zeke.
Yep.
But, Bill, is it time for the Cowboys to draft another running back?
Well, they will draft another running back. He may not end up being the guy, but they're going to draft another running back. They draft running backs. Like they still value running backs, I think, a little more than the average team. So yes, they will draft another running back.
The Colts plus 3.5 against the Titans. Boy, we've seen this before.
I'm riding with the Colts. That's right. I think the right. I think the Colts. The Colts may not win it outright, but that's the hook saves me. I think it's a 3-point game, so I think that the hook will save me.
Okay. The Packers minus 5.5 at the Commanders. We have Taylor
Let me
Heineke
see.
starting this week for the
Yeah,
Commanders.
I think that it's a get right game for a thus far disappointing Green Bay team. I think they look like the Green Bay team we're expecting to see all year. I think this might be an actual blowout.
Uh, Bill, usually Aaron uh, is very, I will say, well, for his veteran wide receivers, Aaron usually tends to go out of their way. He tends to trust them a little bit more. But what do you think about the relationship between him and Dobbs as compared to the relationship between him and Lazard?
Right, well, it's a different relationship. With
Much
Lazard,
different.
yeah, he looks at Lazard essentially as a colleague, right? He still looks at Dobbs as a trainee, So um, he
But doesn't Dobbs have more targets and more catches?
Right, but look at the way he talks to the two of them. When he talks to Alan Lazard, it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'm gonna get you a ball or two later. And Lazard's a great blocker. They run a lot of things to his side. He blocks for them in the run game. He blocks for them, a lot of the ways with screens. He's the blocking receiver and all the screen game stuff. Terrific, terrific blocking wide receiver. Dobbs is going to be their wide receiver one, and they're developing into wide receiver one. But it hasn't always been easy going, and Aaron Charles Rogers is, on a couple occasions not really pulled his punches with the young man. So there's a difference in how he sees the two of them, despite the fact he knows that Dobbs has more than, has more talent than any other receiver on the roster.
Uh, if you had if you had to put odds on it, what would your odds be of Aaron Rodgers being back in a Packers uniform next year?
I think it's more than 50-50. I think that he doesn't want to leave without another ring, and I've talked about that. I think he knows that being in the one ring club, just like when Peyton was in the one ring club, it diminished him in a lot of people's eyes. That second ring, even though it's silly as it sounds, and to me it is silly, changes the conversation around him.
I well, maybe you have a different idea of this than I do, but I think that the chances of Aaron Rodgers getting another ring before he retires, I just don't see it with the way the Packers are playing and with the way that some of these other teams have progressed. So I'm thinking that within the next, if not next year, at least a year after, that Aaron is going to go riding off into the sunset, either out of frustration that he hasn't gotten to that ring level yet, and uh, if if you had to put a significant bet on it, when do you think that Aaron would win another ring?
Well, now the question is, will he do it in Green Bay? Right? Will it be like with
Okay, all right.
Brady or some of the guys you talked about, where he ends up setting up a trade? Here's the good news, right?
You
If
think you think he's going to be 40 years old playing for the 49ers?
I don't know about the 49ers,
I'm
uh,
just-
but I think there's a team out there that's eyeing him, and I think he's eyeing opportunities to play someplace else.
Hey, what about Miami?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. Now, and it's a big if for some reason, you know, Tua cannot recover physically, and Tua's going to play again, playing this week. But if he suffers another serious concussion, something like that, and they have this team that's built to win, but they are lacking a quarterback, and they're willing to move, say, a second and a first, or even 2 seconds, it might be made to happen. We'll see. But I'm intrigued
Well,
to see what might happen next.
where, it, where do you see as some of the possible landing spots for Mr. Aaron Rodgers if he leaves the pack?
So, legitimate landing spots, places where I think he legitimately could, like, not just talking, but could actually happen. That means the team has
Cap
significant cap
space.
space, right? It means the team would be close enough to contending that he would at least take their phone calls, and that they have a receiver situation that he would not find off-putting. Well, admittedly, the Colts have been down this path before. um, hey, another restraight quarterback. Okay. But they do have the cap space. They have a couple of receivers I think you would like. Michael Pittman Jr. is a budding star. Um, that's one I think would at least make the list. Um, I don't think Tampa Bay will have the space, though it'd be fun to see if it happens. I think they need to restructure some contracts as it is soon to make the cap work. Who else could be short on that? I have to check to see Tennessee's cap space situation, but they don't have AJ Brown anymore, so that probably wouldn't be very attractive to them now. Um, yeah, the Bears are about to have a whole bunch of cap space, but I don't think that's going to happen. And the receiver situation isn't really ideal.
Okay. Let's let's see. The next game in line here is the Bucks against the Panthers. The Bucks minus 5.5. I mean 10.5. I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, hold on. So the Bucks are giving 10.5.
Yes, to the
And they're,
Panthers.
right, and they're playing
At the Panthers.
10.5 is a lot of points. And this defense isn't as good as their past
We,
defense
you
is.
know, we say this every week, and every week the team that gets 10.5 gets blown the hell out. Every week we say, oh man, 10.5, that's a lot of points. And then what?
I mean,
Pittsburgh
obviously they're
gets
getting
wins.
right. There's a reason that team is getting 10.5 points.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, you know what? And I like PJ Walker, but you're right. You're probably right. They probably will not really struggle to score points. Now this will be the week it doesn't happen, but sure, whatever. I guess I'll ride with Chubb there.
Let's see. Uh, the Giants plus 2.5 at the Jaguars. The Giants are getting 2.5,
Huh. I'm
and they're playing at the Jaguars.
right. I heard that part. Giants at the Jaguars, and the spread is
2.5.
that's about right. I'm gonna go Giants. I think they win it by 3.
Um, the Clowns minus 6.5 at the Ratbirds.
Wait, the Browns are giving the points?
Excuse me?
Wait, are the Browns giving or getting the points?
They're getting.
Oh, okay, okay. I was later. If they're getting, okay, if they were giving the points, this is the easiest way. Okay, okay. I knew that sound right. I'm still gonna take the Ravens. I think they do get 2-7, but that scares me. I'll make that scare.
Uh, the Jets plus 2.5 at the Broncos.
Wait, the Jets are getting 3?
Yep.
Yes, all day long the Jets. Wait, is that a joke? Yes, please. Finally, an easier.
uh, the Texans minus 6.5 at the Raiders.
Ooh, the Raiders are not that good, but the Texans are terrible. You know what? I'll call it a get right game, and I'll say that yeah, go ahead Raiders. You're gonna win there. Oh, by 7 or more.
Um, the Seahawks plus 6.5 at the Chargers.
Okay. And the spread was what again?
Huh?
Give me the spread one more time.
6.5.
Ooh, and they're playing at.
The Chargers.
I'll go with the Chargers.
Okay. Um, the Chiefs minus 3.5 at the 49ers.
I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. I think they. I mean, it's a tough defense, but I think they have the answers for it.
Okay. The Steelers plus 7.5 at the Dolphins.
Ooh, oh, I will go there. And this is at Pittsburgh.
No, it's at Miami.
Oh, it's at Miami. Oof, that complicates it. I will go with Miami.
Okay. Um, and let's see. I think it's the Monday night game here. Is it? Yeah. The Bears plus 7.5 at the Patriots.
This is the Bears plus 7. place packed. Oof. Um, okay. I will, maybe the hard thing is, I will go with, I'll go with New England, but I don't like it.
What was that?
You said New England is at New England?
It's at New England, and the Bears are getting 7.5.
Oof. I will go with New England, but I don't like it.
Yeah, that's, so sounds like the muttering of what was that?
Yeah,
Does, doesn't sound like you're ready to take down the mortgage money. Yeah,
not that, not that.
Bill. Oh man, hey, this will probably be the earliest that we ever get off the air. Uh, considering, uh, first of all, any updates on Demetrius?
Yeah, they're expecting in the next few days to hopefully get some news, and I will definitely let you know when I know more. But there's still, you know, there's still some. There've been some encouraging signals, but nothing definitive yet.
Okay, all right, very good, very good. Uh, what? Who's going to be your game of the week, Bill? If you had one game that you're going to watch this week, one game of college, one game professional, what
Okay,
are those two games?
got it. That's a good one though. That's actually a great question. And since I'm choosing one, that's going to be the part where it gets interesting. Oh my gosh. So I'm picking just
One on Saturday, one on Sunday.
right. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I will go Syracuse Clemson for my one college game. Um, I've watched a lot of Syracuse, probably more than anyone except people who are directly associated with Syracuse, and I still don't know if there's something there, but I will know. I will know soon. Uh, even if they don't win that game, if they look like they belong on the same field as Clemson, they'll answer quite a lot about any sort of doubts. Um, yeah, that's that will answer any of your questions. And then for the pros, um, I will go with. Let me see. I think I will say. Um, you know what? Seahawks Chargers. It's an interesting contrast in styles, and once again, one that will answer a lot of questions about who's good or not. Um, I think it's very evenly matched, and obviously, when there's a bye week, sometimes it gives you a chance to see some teams you don't normally see. So yeah, I'll go with that.
So your pro game was what?
Seahawks Chargers.
Seahawks Chargers, okay,
Yeah.
and you're gonna pick a winner in both of those.
I thought, oh, we didn't. Okay.
I know you see. So you
I think
picking
I'm going to go
Syracuse,
Chargers, but I expect it to be extremely close.
okay? So the Chargers in Syracuse.
I didn't pick Syracuse, and that's why
That's why I wanted to make it
I
definitive
haven't
before
picked.
I.
I picked the spread. They might not let Clemson cover. I don't think they're going to win, but I think once again, I think that Garrett Schrader and Sean Tucker can give them trouble, and Orlando Gatson over the top, Junior. Orlando Gatson Jr. gives them trouble. I just don't think they have enough along their offensive and defensive lines to handle that. Especially, that's a great defensive line. Well, we'll find out if they're great or not. That's a really good defensive line that Clemson has. We'll find out if they're great.
So your final thoughts for the evening, Bill?
So, amongst my final thoughts, and this will be, I guess, my main final thought. So, the 20th of September, not September, Bill, October. Yes, that would be the day it is. Um, there are some things that I think about. Now, obviously, one of the cool things about it is it's when we have that confluence, right? We still have baseball, right? Postseason. Hockey and basketball just started, and football is just beginning to really heat up towards the midpoint. But I'm going to talk about a very important day because on this day in 1924, the first Negro League World Series took place, and the Kansas City Monarchs in that first game of that World Series shut out Hillsdale 5-0. And while people sort of talk about the Negro League as, to some extent, sort of a time to be ashamed, and there are some certainly shameful things about the need for the Negro Leagues. Negro Leagues themselves, the reason they existed might be somewhat shameful, but the Negro Leagues themselves, in terms of quality of player and quality of play, were nothing to be ashamed of, and nothing to be, whatever term you sneezed at, looked down upon, pick a term. But it was a super important day because so many really truly great players, some of whom deserve to be in the Hall of Fame and still are not, but that was a great game played between two terrific football teams, two terrific baseball teams, football with a brain, two terrific baseball teams with a lot of really good players on them. And while everyone, not everyone, many people look at the Negro Leagues as something to have moved on from and survived, and that obviously people look at them and say, how much progress we've made and how it's a good thing that we no longer need the Negro League. I think it's worth mentioning, that the Negro League did more than just fill a placeholder, more than just fill a service or, you know, provide a place for great players who should have been in the major leagues to play. It helped to create a slightly different and frankly more exciting genre of football built around guile and speed and tremendous pitching, along with obviously some great hitters as well. But it was a game where it wasn't as much station to station baseball as the majors were at that time. So I tip my hat to the Negro Leagues and, of course, their first Negro World Series, and obviously, especially to the Kansas City Monarchs, one of the great uh, juggernauts in terms of what they were as a franchise in the Negro League.
Hey, Bill, as always, man, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you next week, my man. You have a good one.
Yep. Yeah, what was it? Go Broncos, let's ride. Is that the? Yeah, shout out to Russell Terry and Russell. At least he's consistent. But yeah, it was always a pleasure, Dave. I will see you again in a week.
All right, you have a good one, my man.
You too.
Talk to you soon.